Do you want a financially secure future, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones as well? This is Generations of Wealth, the podcast that breaks down the most effective wealth building strategies you can easily apply to your own life. Join investor and international best-selling author Derek Dombeck in exploring practical tips and sound advice on building a profitable business, creating a powerful brand, or getting into the thriving world of real estate investing. This is your chance to create your very own financial roadmap to live your vision, love your life. Let's begin this discussion with your host, Derek Dombeck.
Welcome to the Generations of Wealth podcast. I'm Derek Dombeck, your host. Podcast where we talk about a lot of different things, but all centered around living your vision, loving your life. Today, I've got an awesome guest, a personal friend of mine, Bob McIntosh. We've spent time together. You spoke on my conference at the Generations of Wealth Voyage in the past, helped us out with some of our digital marketing. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to help my audience. Bob, if you wouldn't mind, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and let's dive in.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for having me on, Derek, man. I appreciate it. It's always great to be able to share information whenever I can. And for all of you listening, thank you. I don't take that lightly. Your time is the most important thing you can give. So I appreciate that you took time to listen to this particular episode. But my name is Bob McIntosh. I've been in real estate since 2008 is when we bought our very first property. So it's been a hot minute. And the short version is flipped a lot of houses back in Buffalo, New York. Although I was living in Los Angeles, my dad was in Buffalo. So back then, I had to figure out how do I add value from 3,000 miles away to the business. And what I got good at, one of the things I got good at was digital marketing. And since that time, I was engaged to create, build, teach, and train some of the largest education platforms out there on digital marketing for real estate investors. And about 4 years ago, started my own agency helping investors and coaches as well with their marketing in that space. So that's the short version. At this point, we don't flip houses anymore, but we do have rentals. We do some private lending, both borrowing and lending ourselves, and then working on actually building out a fund and a couple syndication deals.
So you got a couple things going on.
Just a few things, like all of us, right? If you're not doing 20 things, are you even an entrepreneur?
Why say no when you can take on number 21 and number 22 and number 23?
Yeah. I have gotten better, though, at saying yes to the things in the same space. So at least it's not like running around like a complete chicken with my head cut off. Like we can leverage a lot of the same audience and messaging and things of that nature. Because I did definitely went down a couple random paths for a while that just didn't make sense.
Yeah, shiny object syndrome has a tendency to grab all of us once in a while and some of us all the time. So,
very true.
Well, when we first got to know each other a couple of years ago and you had come and spoke at the Generations of Wealth Voyage, and it was on digital marketing. And one of the things that my big takeaways from that was you talk about the key pillars, right? There's basically about 3 key pillars. Can you kind of dive into that high level and then we'll go into each one in more in depth?
Yeah, 100%. So the one thing I've been teaching, especially for investors, and it doesn't matter if you're a new investor, you're an intermediate investor, or one that's been doing it for 40 years. The reality is these 3 things are critical to all businesses having more success. Now, I want to be transparent. Can you have success without doing everything I'm going to talk about? 100%. But what you're going to find is that if you set these things up the right way, not only do your leads convert easier, your conversations go easier, your credibility is higher, and it just allows for deals that might have been iffy or maybe not closed before will now close because of these things. And when you think about it that way, the reality is if you implement everything that I talked about that I'll teach you guys today, and it got you even one extra deal this year, one extra loan, one extra rental property, whatever it might be, just one, for 1 year, that's it. And then never did anything else for you, it'd probably still be worth it. But the reality is if you do these things, it's going to have recurring revenue returns for you over time.
What's the first pillar then, Bob?
Yeah, the first pillar is your website. And this is pillars for digital marketing. So just to be clear. Right. So your first pillar is your website. It's absolutely important to have a good, clean, modern looking website. The thing that most people get wrong is they think, well, my website's not generating me leads. And the reality is it's probably not going to generate you leads unless you're actively utilizing it for that purpose. And there's things that you have to do for that. But even if it's not generating you leads, I guarantee you it's costing you leads. because someone goes there. And unfortunately, what's happened in the last few years is a lot of really crappy wholesalers who made some money and think they're really good at what they do, but actually aren't. Started getting in the space and teaching folks and working in the space and doing things and doing it kind of in a shady way. And so it's kind of brought a whole bad nomenclature to a lot of us investors. And because of that, your credibility now becomes more important. 10 years ago, I would have told you, the website was far less important. It was more about being real, not looking like a real company, being an individual person. That's actually detrimental now because of what's happened. And so a website is not just about lead generation, but it's also about building that credibility. Imagine for a second that you're on a call with a seller and they're like, well, how do I know I can trust you? And you say, well, let's go to my website, take a look at my testimonials, look through here, you know what I mean? Like you start showing it, you use it as a sales tool. Now all of a sudden, even though it didn't generate the lead for you, it might be the thing that pushes one or two extra sellers over the fence to work with you this year. And that, again, in the real estate space could be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference in your bottom line. And so that's the first one, is just having a great website. And one more thing on that. People don't understand how important design of your website. Right now, it's about, different studies vary, but between 92 and 96% of your website visitors will leave if the design is not modern or friendly enough or easy enough for them to understand what's going on. They're judging your credibility based on just the design alone, not your case studies, not your testimonials, your history. If you're a family business, how long you've been in business, they don't care about any of those things first. They do eventually care about those things. That will make some difference. But the first thing they're looking at is, if your design is old and dated, then your business is old and dated, and therefore I don't want to work with you. And so they'll leave. And that's a huge, huge thing. Case in point, the websites that we build for our clientele, and literally just this morning, as of this recording, we just launched new designs for everyone, because part of the thing that we understand is how important that design is. And so now everyone who has a real estate site with us just got a brand new design. So they're looking fresh and clean and new. They don't have to worry about it for the next 3 to 5 years, because design takes about that long to kind of iterate through different variations.
Okay, so with design, and some of this is going to be my own challenges that I have with marketing teams that I've spent money with over the years. And a lot of us, and you and I have had candid conversations about this in the past too, with my own previous staff members that did marketing for us and other things. They get bogged down and they don't modernize. But to us small operators out there, that we know we need to have a website, maybe we have a CRM and we can get a website through the CRM, but we don't really know if it's good or not. It's just part of the package of our CRM. What should people expect to have to pay? Or, and I know that can be a wide range, but how long should it take to build something out? How do you vet whoever you're going to use if you're not tech savvy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is, it really is going to depend on a lot of factors. So, you, in the space of web design, you get what you pay for in most cases. So if you're going to go to Fiverr or someplace like that, or you're going to go to Wix and build a Wix site, which I really don't do that. You're going to get what you pay for. Transparently, look, my team can help you. We have a very low cost site that's great for new investors just getting off the ground. It's not going to break the bank. And as part of our monthly hosting that you pay with us, we include those design updates that we do whenever we do them. So all of our users that we updated this morning, it's everyone who's active. So every single active site, they got the new design pushed down to their instance of their site as part of this. So it's less about, what should I be looking for, and more about who you need to look for. Look for someone who understands the space, who understands what's going on. Now, if you're going to build your own custom site, obviously, like I said, we have a template site that we utilize for most of our clients. And so the cost can come down because it's the same template site. We just change out colors and logos and all that stuff. However, if you have a fully custom site, updating a completely custom site to a whole new design can range you from, I'd say on the cheap side, probably $1,000 to $2,000. The expensive side being $5,000 to even $8,000, depending on, a lot of variability. How many pages do you have, and content, and who's writing it, and that kind of stuff. But, it can be, the thing that people don't understand is that it takes quite a bit of time to build good web design. It takes no time at all to build crappy web design. I love seeing all these AI websites. They're like, oh, look, I can build a website in AI. I was like, yeah, look at it. It looks like a generic, boring website, which is fine. I'd rather you have a generic, boring website than no website at all. That's certainly better. But the reality is if you want something that's going to actually communicate your credibility and help you stand out from the fray, then yeah, you're gonna have to probably make a sizable investment of a few $1,000s to make that happen. Unless you're again coming with a templated shop, which is like what we do. We can do that for at this point in time about $500 plus the hosting. So it's very inexpensive in that case. But the point is this: when you look at doing this, just understand that your design is important. If you're looking at the site going, this feels kind of old or dated or ugh, or just like meh, right? If any of those descriptive words, right, fit into your idea of your site, then it's probably 10 times worse for your clients. Why? Because you've already got a generally positive bias to your own website and your own company. So if you're going, that means most of everyone else is going, ugh. And I use, by the way, I'm using these words because it's just easier on a podcast format. But you get the idea, right? Like, think about how your site makes you feel, then make it even worse because these people don't know you. Like, it's cold traffic most of the time coming to your site. So it's going to be, there's not that positive feedback's not going to be there, and then you go from there. If you're like, yeah, right, like, this is my site, this looks good, I like this, right, then everyone else is going, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like, it's always a slightly toned down version of how you feel. So that's how you can kind of judge as well, and then decide where you need to go from there.
So, and this is again something that I've come across recently and in my own past. There's what's called the fold when you're looking at a website, which you can explain far better than anyone else I know. What should be above well, first explain what the fold is, but what absolute information should be above the fold and what's okay to be below the fold in a website?
Yeah, so the answer is, again, it sort of depends. In an ideal scenario, when you're looking at your site, the fold is where the page ends on your computer screen, your tablet screen, or your phone screen. So whatever I can see before I scroll, that's above the fold. After I scroll is below the fold. No different than a newspaper, right? That was the whole idea, right? The fold, that's where the term came from, was I was above the folded edge of the newspaper or below the folded edge. Same idea. Above the fold right now on websites, I think a couple things. Obviously, one, your navigation menu. What is it that like, so if I want to find something, it's easy. It's got to be there. Don't get like, as an investor, this is not your opportunity to get crazy creative and create weird menu structures and different like, that's for artist sites, not for businesses, right? Let's be real. We got to keep it simple. So that should be above your fold. And we'll come back to the mobile issue in a minute. But second should be a clear, concise message of who you are and what you do as the primary person for your site. The hard thing for investors is that we have to talk to motivated sellers, retail buyers, investor buyers, private money lenders, agents, contractors, and they all want something very different from each other. What we find is that talking to motivated sellers first is usually the best way. Why? Because most of us need sellers more than we need anything else, like true good leads there. And number two, almost all of those other people that I just talked about will go hunting for the information they want. Motivated sellers won't. Like, if they don't see it immediately, they're off to somebody else going, well, they're talking about contracting. That's not me. They're already gone in someplace else. So we got to kind of deal with the lowest common denominator. In that case, it's going to be the motivated seller. So I usually have a clear, concise message about, and it doesn't have to be this exact format, but I want you to think about it this way. I help blank achieve blank with blank. So I help people who own a house in a bad situation sell their house quickly without having to pay 6% commissions or something like that, right? And I'm just spitballing. A lot of our sites, we say, hey, we buy houses in XYZ areas because that's clear, concise, what it is, right? And then right below that, I usually have a form or a button that opens a form at the very least, because I want their information. A lot of people like to say, well, you don't even know if they want to give you information before you put a form in. They want to learn. No, like, get to the point. If you're after their information, because you can't do anything without it, then tell them, I need you. Like, this is what I want. People get it confused. Your website is not supposed to be this like journey you take people on as a real estate investor. Look, if you're an artist, absolutely. If you're, some sort of creative profession, yeah, sure, that makes sense. If you're, whatever, like that, yeah. But as an investor, like, we're dealing with motivated, like, what is the point? I can buy your house for cash and help you get closed quickly. Now, it doesn't have to always be that messaging directly, but get to the point. Say, this is what I'm here to do. Do you want this thing? They'll decide if that even resonates with them. Because if it doesn't, they're already going to leave anyway. So all the rest of the stuff you have is irrelevant. But if it does, and like, yes, this is me, then they'll start going through other things. And I want them to know, hey, when you're ready, if that still makes sense, this is what you do next, which is give me your information. So, don't get confused on like trying to be crazy. Like, keep it simple. This is not rocket science. It just has to be clear, concise, and understandable for the average person.
Beautiful. I told everybody you explain it way better than anyone else could.
Perfect.
So are we still on pillar number 1?
Yeah, that's all pillar number 1. So pillar number 2, and we can dive into more details of this later, but pillar number 2 is the importance of a CRM. And when I say CRM, really what I mean is an email and texting platform. Look, there's lots of other kinds of CRMs that store information. And by the way, if you don't know what a CRM is, it means customer relationship management. It's a software that allows you to track all the contacts that you deal with and do certain things with them. As a real estate investor, the most important things that we can do is track all of our data. And I'm actually going to talk about that because it is really important in a second. Number 2 is communicate with our prospects. So that's potential sellers, potential buyers, retail or investor, potential lenders, potential contractors, potential agents. Like these people, until they become an actual part of our business, we have to warm them up and get them there. And so you got to track all of that. So we need tracking of data and we need communication. And ideally, it should help you automate those first 2 things. So we have a lot of data. We can communicate with our prospects, and I can automate the communication and collection / management / storage / moving, if I need to, of data. As long as it can do those 3 things at a base, then it's probably going to be a good system. Where a lot of people get hung up is, I got to have the perfect CRM. It needs to do everything. It needs to do all this stuff. Look, you don't. You're never going to find it. And invariably, that thinking leads you down the path of saying, well, I'm going to build something custom, which then turns into a nightmare for every single. I do not know a single person who's tried to build a CRM in the real estate space, really any space, that didn't, that was like for themselves internally. Not like, I'm not referring to those who built it to sell it to other people, but for them, like it's a nightmare. It's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's still not going to work great. And when something breaks, it's going to cost you a fortune to fix. What I tell everyone else is, rather than trying to fit the CRM into your business, fit your business into your CRM. Most of these CRMs, ours included, because we have one that we can plug you into that's for real estate investors. But the reality is, not every system is going to be perfectly fit for your business. But can you fit 70, 80, 90, 95% of your business into what's already there, or make a few adjustments to fit it in? And if that's the case, then you should do that. Because you're not trying to be a tech mogul, presumably, if you're on this podcast listening here, like you're trying to be a real estate investor. So your time is not best spent trying to find the perfect CRM that will fit your process. Your time is better spent getting people in the door and closing them, and then letting the process work however it needs to work on the backside for you. And so that's that. But if you don't have a great follow-up system, you don't have a great CRM to track that data, you don't have these things, the communication platforms in place, you are falling behind. There's no other way to say it, but you are already way far behind anyone else who does have those things. And even further to this point, in 2024, sometime in summer, we don't know the exact date. Speculation is July or August, maybe September. There's not been an official, that I know of at least at this point, date set. Google is going to change a lot of what works for third-party cookies. And this may not seem super important to you right now, but it's a start of a bigger trend, which is control of data. And without getting into all the politics and the shenanigans behind it, the short version is there's a war right now between Facebook, Apple, and Google for who controls your data. And Google and Apple are the most likely winners of those 2 things, because they control, Apple controls most of the devices that your data is being collected on, and Google controls Chrome / the internet / Google. So how that's being used. And so the reality of this means this. If you're not storing every piece of data, and I mean literally, you should be storing everything, even for those who never want to sell their house to you, even for those who opt out and say, stop messaging me, keep your data that you either pay to collect, pay to get, do marketing for, however you got the data, save it. Because that data is going to become infinitely more valuable to your business over time as access to, we got conditioned for years, the last 10 years really, maybe even more, that we could just access data. I didn't need data because I could just go to Facebook or Google and they had all the data and I could access it, not directly as in let me see the physical data, but I can run advertising, I can utilize it in my business without having direct access. That's going to change over the next 12 to 24 months. And so control of your own data becomes way more important no matter what you do. And that's for every business, not just for real estate investing. And so control your data. And then the other side of this is that communications become harder, is getting harder and harder and harder. So the more that we can control our communication with our potential clients, the better our results are going to be. I can't rely on other platforms to give me the communication. I need to take charge of it myself. That's why you have to have that in a great CRM. So that's pillar number 2 is doing that in your business.
Okay, so a couple questions on CRMs. And again, I'm going to keep it as simple as I can because it's me and I'm simple when it comes to tech. I have used RealFlow for years and I like RealFlow. However, it doesn't have some of the features that we would want it to have now. So we're considering switching. So right now we're looking at all these different platforms. And for me, it just drives me crazy anytime I have to change because I'm a slow learner when it comes to tech. And once I get used to something, I'm fine with it. But currently, I guess something you said is it's done is good enough. And that's my fault. You didn't actually say those words. That's my words. But done is good enough to the degree that, yes, you can improve it as you go. But if you have nothing and you're not using anything, you're falling behind. I currently don't text. And I guess I got kind of jaded once they changed all the texting rules. Just getting my own website to be compliant with getting permission to text people that reach out to us, all that stuff just did nothing but piss me off. But what do you see happening with CRMs in the future? Ringless voicemail, texting, which has already got, a lot of rules with it. Cold calling, which has no call lists. What do you see happening in the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah. Let's summarize. I can summarize all of the rule changes that have happened for calling, texting, voicemail, all of that to one simple idea: permission. And this goes back to one of my favorite books from Seth Godin that he wrote years ago called Permission-Based Marketing. And that's what they're after. What we've gotten used to is that marketing, and especially in this digital age, has been the wild, wild west because it didn't exist. Like the ability to mass text, like we've seen in the last few years, didn't really, like, it was only, the only way to do that before was like really expensive platforms. So it was cost prohibitive for most businesses. Now the cost has come down to something that's nominal. And so what's happened is the industry, AKA the government in this case, mostly, has come down and said, hey, like, consumers are complaining about these things, so we're going to step in now. Like everything, marketers ruin it at some point in time, because we always do. Like, I wish I could say it wasn't true, but it is, because we'll figure out how to take advantage of it until you tell us we can't. And so here's what's happened. All of this digital stuff has basically been wrapped into the idea of permission. If you don't have permission to do these things with these folks, you shouldn't be doing it anymore. And in many cases, they've either made it illegal or made the fine substantial. Side note, for any of you guys who don't know this, I personally know 9 different real estate investing companies that have been now sued by the FTC for between $2 and $9 million a piece for cold texting. So this is not one of those, well, it doesn't apply to us. No, it does. Right? So what does that mean, though? The reality is, trust me, these technologies are not going anywhere. They're becoming even more important. The difference is we can't just use it as a mass reach out tool anymore. We have to use it as a warming up tool and drive more inbound traffic, which requires doing different marketing. No different than cold calling and cold texting. Wasn't really a thing 10 years ago. I mean, kind of was, but not really. Like, it wasn't to the effect that it is now. Now all of a sudden it got huge, and then that went by the wayside, and there'll be something else. I've been in this industry enough. There's only about 10 to 15 different ways you can market for a property, and we just seem to rotate through a circle of those 10 to 15. Like, that's the reality. So what will become of these things is not that they will become mass outreach tools as much as they will become communication builders, automation builders, and ways for us to improve our communication and automation with our clientele. So case in point, we started building chatbots because we said, okay, well, if we can't do cold texting, cold calling regulations, getting harder and harder, we can't do a lot of other things. Even ringless voicemail technically falls under the TCPA and is illegal, right? Doesn't mean that we can't do these things. No, we can still do them. You just take the risk. Like, you understand that, hey, the risk is, probably not that you're going to go to jail, but that you do face potential fines. And for some folks, that's okay. Those companies getting sued for $2 to $9 million, I don't actually know what the revenue was. They might go, all right, here's $9 million. Still worth it because we closed, 1,000 deals at $100,000 a piece. Well, who cares? I'll pay them, here's the fine, go away. We'll keep doing it, right? The point is this, you gotta learn to adjust and adapt. And so we started building chatbots, for example. What we find is we can get a list, buy a list from wherever you buy it from, doesn't matter. Skip trace a list from wherever you skip trace from. I got a couple resources that I use, but wherever you do it, take that list, upload it to Facebook, for example, run a targeted marketing campaign using Messenger. Message activates on Facebook Messenger, which doesn't have any regulation around it, by the way, comes into my CRM, and then my chat bot takes over, qualifies, determines their motivation, how serious are they, what are they looking for, a price point, all this stuff. And if it makes sense, then they hand it, the bot automatically hands it off, says, hey, I'll schedule an appointment for you, finds an appointment in my calendar, schedules a time, and books for me to talk to the seller. All that happened without me having to do anything. So when we look at what's happening, it's not necessarily that all this stuff is becoming harder. Yes, I guess in a way it is. We just have to shift where we focus our attention and how we attract these people in. And if you understand that, then all of a sudden the importance of a CRM becomes so much more important. Because I know now, for example, like here's the reality. Even if I wanted to hire a VA, a good VA, let's say, who can speak English well, and let's say that's what, $8 an hour, I might be able to get someone for less, but I do need them to have some qualifications. And so let's say 8. You can probably get it for, the reality is it's probably more like 15, but let's say you get an $8 an hour person. And let's just say that that person's going to cold call for you for, 40 hours a week. That's $320 per week. That's $1,280 per month. The reality is for chatbots on our side, including the CRM, you might pay $300 a month total, and the chatbot's working 24/7, 365. So if at 2:00 in the morning they decide to message in, the chatbot's going to answer, right? What would it cost for you, even at $8 an hour times, 165 hours a week times 4 weeks? That's $5,200 at an $8 an hour VA. If I spread them out, I mean, like the cost differential is insane. So I can have basically the same thing happening for literally, what is that? Like less than a tenth of the cost of the same thing. And so while there is more regulation, there's also more opportunity than there's ever been if you understand how to plug that opportunity into your business.
Yeah. And what frustrates the hell out of me is all of these things, and I'll be real candid. You and I have talked about this in the past. I've had a marketing struggle for years, right? You hire somebody, you put all your faith in that and their knowledge and their experience, but you really don't know for months and months and months if what they've been doing actually produces results. And so as things shift, if you're dealing with a marketing agency or company or staff member that doesn't keep shifting with the times, it doesn't take long to spend 6 figures and get no return, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that can certainly happen. What you have to think about and what you need to look for is who in my space understands this business and what's our communication metrics, right? Like anything. Here's been my experience. I've had plenty of companies that I've worked with that didn't produce results. Every single time, though, if I look back, without fail, every single time when the results weren't being produced, it wasn't because of, I look back and I say, it wasn't necessarily because of anything other than I wasn't tracking it appropriately. Because if I had KPIs in place and I understood what was going on and there was regular metrics and reporting back and I knew what were my leading indicators and my lagging indicators and whatever that we're working on, now all of a sudden, usually within a month or two at the outset of any, especially in the marketing front, a month or two, we're going to have a pretty good idea of, hey, is this thing achieving what we intended for it or not? If not, what is it achieving? And if what it's achieving is still worth it, do we continue or do we shift or do we, tweak? But I think like anything, I have heard this, I think it was Tony Robbins that said this, or I'm sure he stole it from someplace else, but that which is not tracked is not measured. That which is not measured does not produce results. Something to that effect. And so, like anything that you do, look at the marketing metrics, so let's say, okay, I'm going to do the campaign with a chatbot that I just talked about. Okay, well, how many leads am I going to put in? Okay. How long am I going to run this for? And like any marketing campaign, you got to give it time. Everything needs time to operate and actually give you usable data. All right. So then the metrics are, okay, I spent X number of dollars. I reached X number of people. I conversed with Y number of people. I set appointments with Z number of people and, ended up closing 13 or whatever the number is, right? Now I got to look back and say, okay, so how much, and then reverse numbers back from there and say, okay, does that make sense? So the course of 2 months, if I close, let's say 2 deals on a campaign, right? And let's just say I made 10 grand a deal for easy numbers. So it's $20,000. Well, how much did it cost me to execute that campaign? If it was $20,000, well, maybe that wasn't a great campaign in that case. If it was $18,000, am I still happy with that number? If I could do that at 10x the size, would I want to? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If it was $5,000 and you made 20, okay, well, that looks pretty good all of a sudden, right? So you have to, like any project in this marketing space, set forth what the metrics should be, not necessarily the actual numbers, because we won't know those in many cases. There's too much variability in a lot of that. But what numbers do I want to track? And your marketing firm should know that. If they don't, That's probably a sign that they're not a good marketing firm. Most good marketing firms want to be held accountable because they know that what they do will work. And if it doesn't work, they don't want to work with you anymore. And so they without metrics, then there's just a lot of guessing. And guessing is no good on a marketing game or any game really, but
So we're through the first two pillars. Actually, I don't know that we touched on email, but we touched on text and phones and stuff. Anything on email before we jump to the third pillar?
Yeah, email still works. A lot of people think it doesn't. It does. The 2023 stats are, I think I just saw them the other day. I could be a little bit off on the number here, but it was hovering around a $40 ROI for every $1 spent. So those who say email marketing is not working, then you're just not doing it. That's as simple as that. I'm going to tell you right now, like I see it, across our CRM, we literally are sending literally hundreds of thousands of emails per day across all of our users, and it's working. If your campaign's not working from an email standpoint, then it's a bad campaign. It's not email's fault. It's your fault for writing bad emails, because it is working. So use it not just for communication of what's going on and how things are working, but for marketing. Because even if they never open a single email from you, which there is, without getting into the specifics, there's a lot of bad reasons to do that, but like it's bad for a lot of reasons. But if nothing else, they're seeing your name pop into their inbox. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. There's Bob's name. There's Bob's name. There's Bob's name. So then, presumably, if they understood why they signed up on your email list, because you got permission to email them, whenever they're ready, they go, oh man, I need help with email marketing. I know that Bob guy keeps emailing me. Let me reach out to him first, right? You'll be the third person they think of first, even if they never open an email. Why? Because they saw your name in there from the last 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 months.
Yeah, 100%. So third pillar, Bob.
So third pillar is going to be what I call high value social profile. High value social profile. Now, what do I mean by that? In the world of social media, there's good, better, best, right? Best is you're actively posting, every single day, multiple times a day, and post stories, everything across every single platform, and it's great. The reality for most of us is that's not feasible without a team of people behind us. It's just not, right? Like there's too many platforms, too many variabilities, too many variations, too many things. Like it's just not, right? So what does high value social profile really mean? It means focus on the 1, 2, or 3 platforms that you feel like you use the most for yourself, because that's where you're most likely to be anyways, and most likely to engage with people and most likely to see what's going on. So if that's Facebook for you, great. If that's Instagram, great. If that's LinkedIn, great. If that's TikTok, great. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Pick the platform, focus on that, and create content in those platforms as much as you possibly can. Now, there's, again, good, better, best. Best, multiple times a day, every single day, 7 days a week. I get that that's probably not real reasonable for most folks. Can you post 3 times a week? Cool, do it. Can you post 1 time a week? Cool, do it. Can you post 1 time a month? Probably not worth your time then, right? Don't get it twisted. Like effort is rewarded on social over the long haul, not the short haul. People are too short-sighted to give it the long haul though. You got to do it for 12 months consistently. I guarantee you, if you posted twice a day, 7 days a week for 12 months, you'd be shocked at what would happen to your profile in 12 months. Now, it won't happen for 6 to 8 or 9 of those 12 months. Almost nothing will happen. But as you start going, when you're consistent, like things will start tracking at that point in time. But what does a high value really mean? Okay. High value really means this. It means, number one, do you have a good profile picture? It's clear. I can see your face. I know if I was to see your profile picture in its small form, not blowing it up, but in its small form, right? And then I met you in person, am I going to recognize you? If not, then it's not a good photo, right? If you're like, Bob, I don't have any good photos, get your iPhone out, go to portrait mode, and have someone snap a few photos for you. It's amazing how it looks. If you're still not sure, you don't want to do a selfie because you don't have anyone to do it, go to Craigslist. I guarantee you, everywhere has a local college. Community colleges are usually the best, that has some sort of photography-based program where you can find a student who's for $100 or less will come take several thousand photos of you wherever you want and then send them to you. And I guarantee you, out of 1,000 photos, there'll be 2 to 5 that are great. Maybe more, but there'll be 2 to 5. And now you got 1,000 photos for $100. Now, of course, you can then go pay to have them edited if you want them and all the other stuff. But the reality is, getting great photos of you is not an expensive prospect if you're okay with, for social media. I don't need a super high quality thing. Here's the reality. I did, there was a great photographer in Chicago, which by the way, if you're in the Chicago area and you want to hook up with her, her name is Zakara. I'll send you her information. Fantastic. I think I paid her, if I remember correctly, $500 2 different times for a photo shoot. She shot like 1,000 photos that I negotiated the access to. So I got all the photos, and then she edited, like beautifully edited, like 60 of them for me for like $500. And I like my headshot, Derek, that I sent you for this podcast was from one of her photo shoots, right? And so it's not expensive to get this great stuff. And people, but it's got to be you, clearly you, not you and your wife, you and your business partner, you and your kids. Like most people, like it just needs to be you. I'm not saying you can't talk about those things in your profile, but your picture should be you. And across every platform, it should be you. The same photo in every platform. Okay. Now, number 2, high value social profile also means being on every platform in so much as owning your space. Think about it like the Oregon land rush, right? If you got there and you shoved your flag in the ground, it was yours. Every single social platform you should have an account on. Ideally, the account usernames, like your handles, like what, so like my, Facebook is facebook.com/the Bob McIntosh, should be the same, ideally, if you can make it so, across every platform. So if you look for me, you're going to find the Bob McIntosh on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or X, whatever it is called now, Snapchat, Parler, Clubhouse, pick one, right? Like there's like 40 other ones out there. But anytime I hear about a new social platform, I go in and I create my account. Now, where are you going to actually see me, Bob? You're going to see me on Instagram, you're going to see me on Facebook, and maybe LinkedIn a little bit, and very occasionally on Twitter. That's about it. Like I have all those other ones. The reality is I don't have time to be on all of them, okay? But you will find me at every single one in the same place. And in every single one, I got the same photo, and I point them ideally back to where else to find me on other platforms. So let's say they're on LinkedIn and they find me, and I don't go to LinkedIn very often. Like once a month, maybe. I probably should do more, but I don't. But they can know if they go there, it's very easy for them to go there and find out that I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on these other platforms and where I'm at. So if they can't reach me here, this is how they can reach me instead. And so what this does is it enables me to be on the platforms that I'm most likely to be on anyways, which means I'm going to actually use it as a business owner. And it allows someone who's on a platform that may not be the same as me to come find me on the platform that I'm on and be able to connect with them. That's what a high value social profile looks like. And then last but not least is just make sure you fill out like the basics, right? Have a simple description about what you do. Have a link to a website, a contact card, a link tree, somewhere where they can get information about you, connect with you, get your phone number for your business or you, fill out a form, opt in for the thing, like make that the same across all platforms, right? Consistency will be key to this because then A, if you want to change it, it's easy to change on every platform. You don't have to write it one time. And B, it allows everyone to find you as easily as possible. So for example, if you connect with me, and this, if you guys want to do this, you go go3dc.com. So go, the number 3dc.com/Bob McIntosh, BOBMCINTOSH, right? And I'm sure Derek put that in the show notes for you. But go to that link, and on that link, there'll be several things. Number 1 will be, here's my contact card. So now they can go get my full, like literally my whole contact card. It's going to have my photo, my phone number, my CRM phone number. Both of those are in there. My birthday, all my social profiles, my email address, it's all there. They can also book a call with me. They can also connect to every one of my major social profiles from that same place. Why? And by the way, I link that same thing everywhere. Why? Because now it's easy for folks to find me. That creates high perceived value in the folks who find me, no matter where they find me. And that's the goal. Because now we look more professional to these folks. We got a great website. We got a great CRM for follow-up and communication. And I've got a good high value social presence. Those 3 things just by themselves will help you close more deals.
No, that's perfect. I mean, we've talked about so many different things, but the reality is it's overwhelming, but necessary. And by the way, we will also have your contact information. Just go to thegenerationsofwealth.com/digital pillars, and we'll link in how to get to Bob that way as well. I know he gave you the long form, and we'll have that in the show notes. But as I said earlier in the show, right, a lot of us, that's overwhelming because we're not techie. We don't know what to start with first, so we start with nothing and do nothing. And it's a reality of our business. We have got to change. I mean, when I started in 2003, we were advertising in newspapers. Obviously, if I was trying to run a business in 2024, advertising in newspapers, we wouldn't have any business. So we don't have a choice.
Surprisingly, they actually kind of work well. You just put a QR code in and it takes them online, and the people who are old school still do it. It's kind of weird. And it's so cheap now because no one does it. Fun fact. I mean, it's not going to be like your biggest lead generator by any means, but there is, for the cost, there's usually still good traction there.
But the point is, if that was all you did, it just doesn't work, right? We have to
Correct.
with things as we go. Bob, I have a question I ask most of my guests. What is something that I should have asked you that I haven't?
Ooh, something that you should have asked me that you haven't. The question that I would say that you didn't ask me that you should have is, how much does it cost to do all this? Because that's usually the biggest factor, right? Like, we've only got so many marketing dollars to spend. How much should it cost to do all of this? The reality is, if you take on a good chunk of this yourself, which won't take more than a handful of hours a week, usually at most, in most cases, and you were to hire someone to do all this, you're talking a few $100s a month to make all this happen. So relatively nominal, right? And that's the thing that I think people need to understand is, if you were to pay all the monthly things just to me for everything I just talked about, right? Outside of, obviously just go create your social and like do some basic posting, right? You're literally going to pay, if you want to, about $3,000 a year. Okay. Now there's some variability in that depending on certain factors, right? But let's just say you spend $3,000 a year. Do you think that if you had all these things set up for a whole year for $3,000, you could generate at least one deal to cover your cost of spending that $3,000? My answer is, yeah, probably you could. I'd be hard pressed to say someone couldn't do that. And so understand, what is your input versus your output. Too many of us as investors get caught up on the actual number instead of looking at, well, what did the number generate for me? I spent 3, I made 2 deals, extra deals this year that I don't think I would have gotten at $5,000 a deal. So I made 10 grand for 3. Well, how many more times can I spend 3 to make 10? Like, that becomes the question. And so I told you to ask the question simply because I know a lot of folks do, but then I also said, had you asked the question because the answer is it shouldn't matter if you're, again, going back to your KPIs and tracking those results.
100%. Absolutely. Well, I can't tell you how much I got out of this, and I get the joys of having you as a personal friend. So we get to have conversations outside of the show, but just really appreciate you again, taking the time, sharing with my audience. Love to have you back on the Generations of Wealth Voyage, which is anybody should be checking out. It's gowvoyage.com. We got back on a cruise ship for the last voyage before we were on land for a couple of years. Fantastic event. We also do a lot of socializing and networking, which is where Bob and I got to spend a lot of time holding some adult beverages, standing in swimming pools, and getting to know each other, which is always awesome. Man, you're just a wealth of knowledge, and I know where your heart is and how much you give to everyone's community, and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And for all of you listening, again, truly appreciate your time. The most valuable thing. If I can help you in any way, go to that link I said earlier. I'd be happy to connect and see if there's a way that I can make your business be even better.
Perfect. Well, we'll wrap it up. We'll see everybody else on the next show. Go out there, live your vision, love your life. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful episode of Generations of Wealth. May your newfound knowledge help you in leveling up your own strategies to get through the many obstacles to your money-making processes and bring you much closer to the financially secure life you truly deserve. Continue filling up your accounts and further polish your financial tactics by listening to more episodes of the podcast at thegenerationsofwealth.com. Because in your wealth building journey, there is no other way to go but up, giving you the chance to finally live your vision, love your life. That's all for now. See you on the next one.